Magic reveals itself to those who remember where to look for it. This is Magic Hour, and I'm your host, Taylor Page. Hello, magical hummingbirds. Before we get into today's episode, I wanted to share a special holiday offering from now until January 4th, which is code 444 on all of my 3-part workshops. Give the gift of magic, give the gift of angels. It's such a beautiful time of year to give yourself the gift of exploring your deeper intuitive gifts and your magic, as well as a woman-owned business and eco-friendly gift to give to the magical people in your life. You can find all of these offerings at angelsandamethyst.com, and that's 444 for $44 off. Welcome back to Magic Hour. Taylor Page here.
And I'm Claire, your producer. Thank you so much for joining us.
There is so much that I have to catch the hummingbirds up on. I'm trying to organize my thoughts. So first of all, this will be our last episode for season 1. We will be coming back on the Aquarius new moon, Wednesday, January 29th. So it's already just really all the feelings that we're already coming to an end of season 1 of Magic Hour.
Yeah, we were just chatting about it and can't believe that we've been doing this for almost a full year and we'll have 40 episodes by the time this comes out. And it's just been so exciting to create this and see the response and have you all be so excited and energized and invested in this. So thank you all so much for being a part of this magical journey with us.
Yes, thank you all so much. And so it feels very appropriate as we round out season 1 that we're also kind of rounding out season 1 of Angels and Amethyst and my personal journey. There's like a really beautiful parallel there because as many of you guys know, I had COVID and was down for 2.5 weeks, and then COVID flared my autoimmune, and I just went on like such a gnarly little Scorpio season health journey to the underworld. It really shifted things and really changed things for me. And I think that that's part of the purpose of sickness is to force our hand almost to look at what isn't working and what needs to change. And I'm not saying that that's the only reason people get sick, because I think there's like dangerous ways of victim shaming people with chronic illness. And that's not where I'm going. But I do think that getting sick serves a purpose. Like your mom says, Claire, we just need to rest and we need to look at things. And when we're up and go, we just can't. And I also think on a more woo-woo level that there's an energetic cleansing and shedding that happens when we're sick. Like the version of us that gets out of bed and goes back to life has a new perspective and a new energy and a way of looking at things because we pressed the eject button for a while. That certainly happened for me. Before I got COVID and went down, I was doing the most with a capital M. And I didn't realize how burnt out I was starting to get. When you're in this line of work, first of all, it's addictive to connect with the spirit world. It's the best feeling in the world, connecting with your angels and your guides, and you just want to do it all the time. But the physical reality is that we can't do it all the time because there's a limit to what the spiritualists would call our quote unquote power. And then we have to like recharge the power and recharge our connection. If you've ever worked in a shop, any readers who have worked in a shop and have done like 10 readings a day, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're like a shell of yourself at the end. And so before COVID, leading up to that, I was doing 3 readings with client sessions, 5 days a week for like the last, 4 or 5 years since I've been full-time with this. I was doing full-time social media management and content creation. Then I introduced Magic Hour, which I think Claire and I were like, wow, we didn't realize how intense having a podcast would be, but we love it so much it would not change a thing. And then I was also doing Earth Angel Club and 15 email readings on top of all of that, not to mention just so much content on my Instagram. So it has just reached a level where COVID really showed me like, I am not the version of self anymore that's an energetic match with. And what's really interesting is I had a reading with Nikki Novo, who I believe is a guest on episode 129. She is so amazing. And she said something to me in our reading that really woke me up. Basically, rewinding, after I recorded with her, she was like, I feel like you're on the precipice of a big career upgrade, and I'd be happy to give you a free reading and connect with you because I see a lot of myself in you. And I was like, that's the most generous thing ever. And she's such an earth angel. And I love her. So she gave me a reading and she was like, your current workload and how much you take on is a trauma response. And I never realized that when Angels and Amethyst, which if you don't know my Instagram or my business, that's my business name. When Angels and Amethyst took off was really around the same time that my mom got sick and passed away. And I remembered in that moment, and this was not subconscious, this was very conscious. I was like, I'm going to stay so busy with helping other people that I do not once have to think about how sad I am and how much I miss my mom. And for a long time, it worked for me. I was like, this is amazing. Like, I love staying this busy. But I'm coming to a place now where my services are needed in different ways and different containers. And this level of staying busy just can't sustain anymore. And I don't need it as a trauma response anymore because I've healed so much and I'm ready to feel everything again. And I'm ready to have more space in my day for creation. And that's the problem, is that my angels and guides are sending me so much information about what's to be created next. And I do not have a second free to fill it. This year has been so intense as well in terms of burnout because my autoimmune has not flared since 2019. And this year it flared 3 times. And so that is my body speaking to me that I cannot keep this level of output. And as I always say, we have to listen to the whispers of our body so our body doesn't have to scream. And I'm listening to the whispers and I hear it. And so with the closing of Magic Hour Season 1 is also the closing, like I said, of Angels and Amethyst Chapter 1. And I'm so excited for the new year for Angels and Amethyst Chapter 2 because I'm changing all of my offerings and I'm stepping into the reader that I am now, who is very different than when I started Angels and Amethyst Chapter 1. I have expanded and grown and gotten to a new level of mastery. And that's not like, tooting my own horn, but I've spent thousands and thousands of hours doing this. And I feel so confident in where I am now and so excited for how to move forward. And Magic Hour is a big part of how I want to serve the community and a big part of my offerings that I want to continue. But there's also new veins of subscription model things and mentorship and a book. There's so much that wants to come through. And so I'm really excited to cultivate more space for that. And I really just want to say a big thank you to my community because people have been working with me for years now and have seen me through all of my different offerings and all of my different chapters. And I just appreciate everybody who's been on the ride of my evolution. I'm really excited to talk about my new offerings going into 2025 briefly before we get into the listener questions and stories. So I've realized that it just doesn't work for me to sit with people for 35 minutes anymore. The level of information that comes through to me is very layered, and I just feel like 35 minutes feels so rushed and like I can't get everything in that I want to say. And so I want every single client session to be about an hour because that is just the time I need to fully dive in, because you might come to your reading and be like, this is what I need guidance on. And, 9 times out of 10, that's what your angels will be saying too. But there's also situations where it's like, oh, there's so much more that they need to talk to you about. And you might pick a 35-minute reading when really you needed an hour. I feel like that's going to be really exciting for the best service of all. The main reading type is going to be called Angels and Ancestors. And this can be a customizable hour of mediumship, angel readings, and whatever you need guidance on, whether it's questions to your angels or connecting with a loved one in spirit. The The second reading type is the hybrid birth chart angel reading that I already offer, which is astrology and angels. I love these readings so much because I go into your birth chart and you can tell me like specific kind of questions or things you're looking at. We discuss it in the chart and then I do an angel reading with cards, and it's just a really nice blend. But what I'm so excited to announce is a new reading type coming into 2025. And this is something I've never seen anybody do. I've actually never seen anybody do a hybrid angel reading birth chart reading either. But I'm so excited for this offering because it is something that has been like percolating in the back of my consciousness for a really long time. And it's called Astrology and Ancestors. Basically, this is a reading type where I look at themes of healing and cycle breaking and blocks in the birth chart. And then mediumistically, I connect to your past loved ones in spirit who have messages about ancestral healing, cycle breaking, or whatever they want to say to you. I'm not going to limit it, but that's the intention of the session. This is so exciting because I feel like so many people in the hummingbird community are cycle breakers and ancestral healers for their line and have a different level of consciousness than the ancestors before them and are able to set their whole lineage on new healed trajectories. And I wanted a reading type that combined my unique skills to support that. And I have such an interest in it personally and such an intense understanding of it, like I said, on a personal level within my own family. And so in this reading, I would say it's best for people who feel like they're a cycle breaker, or also people who feel a little stuck in their life and they're not exactly sure why and could use maybe some clarity on how they could rewire things or make a new healed choice and some support from their ancestors in spirit. So whatever you're navigating, one of those three categories will be for you. I would say the angels and ancestors is for people who feel like they have so many questions that they need guidance on in their life. The birth chart angel reading hybrid is a really good one for like self-discovery with a hint of questions for what you're going through here and now. And then the ancestral reading is really about people who want to have a mediumship focus and talk about healing within the line and what I see from their past lifetimes, even in the birth chart. So I'm really excited to announce that for the next giveaway on the podcast, when we hit 166 5-star reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, the type of reading that I'm going to give away for free is a astrology and ancestors reading. So if you have not already sent in your 5-star review to contact@magichourpod, do not wait, magichourpod.com. Do not wait, because you do not want to miss this opportunity. And as soon as you enter the giveaway, you're entered into all future giveaways as well.
Yes, this is so exciting, Taylor. I know this has been something that's been in motion for a while, maybe even without you realizing it, with all the work you've put in. I know it can be exciting and scary thing as we like grow and expand to step into that new chapter, but I know that it's just going to open you up to so many new endeavors and ways for you to connect with your community even deeper and more intentionally. And so I think it's just really exciting, and I can't wait to see what it holds for all of us.
Thank you so much. And I just feel so inspired in creating and offering, and I'm still sort of deciding and designing and creating space for it to even come through, that empowers everybody to be their own highest healed, intuitively connected self. And I'm so excited to create that space. And I think it will be needed more than ever, especially in these next 4 years. And something that was coming through to me, which was a little bit tongue in cheek, was the phrase patriarchy proof. And this isn't going to be what the offering is, but I just have been contemplating the idea of our feminine essence being so rooted in herstory, a healed witch wound, a connection to our angels and guides, a connection to our inner child, a connection to our heart space that we are like unfuckable with, that we are patriarchy proof, and that no matter how much we are gaslit by history or patriarchy or these oppressive systems, we will not back down or question ourselves or question our own power. And I feel really passionate about that. And I've always felt passionate about women empowerment.
Yeah, I feel my own self on that journey for sure, even thinking about the way I've been approaching things in my life now versus the way that I wouldn't have before. Like Oh my gosh, my boundaries are so much stronger and I'm saying no when I want to say no. And still, it can be a little bit crunchy, but I see all this growth and I see this like awareness. And it's just such a beautiful thing to no longer be at the whim of this system that doesn't really support us.
Yeah. And like we're supporting ourselves, we're supporting each other, we're seeing our value no matter what the masculine energy on the external says. It's just such a powerful place to be. So, the next thing I want to talk about before we get into the questions is a little bit of my mediumship development journey, because I love to check in with the hummingbirds and share this because so many of you guys are on your own mediumship development journey and it's just really cool. So, I've definitely noticed after COVID that my readings have changed and my mediumship has gotten deeper. It's like everything about me is next level, like 2.0 since this COVID. It's been such an upgrade. It's crazy. And it's not that the connection hasn't always been there. It's that now I can surrender deeper into it after a time of rest. Whereas my busy, frenetic schedule kept me on the surface level of consciousness of connection, this sort of deep surrender to time and patience and sitting in the power allows me to go to deeper layers of connection. I hope that makes sense. That's where I really connected with like what sitting in the power actually means. Because I know we were talking about like walking with the power and then dancing with the power. And I still fully resonate with that and think that that is a guide to where we are evolving into as a collective. But sitting with the power, which if you're not familiar with this term, listen to my mediumship series. It's basically the mediumship version of meditation where you sit in the presence of the spirit world. And sitting in the power requires patience and stillness. And I was living a life where I could not be patient and still, where I was trying to meditate and sit in the power just so I could be ready for my next reading, not for the sake of actually sitting with the spirit world and giving them my time, my energy, and my patience. And since I've sort of found more inner world room to breathe, my readings have gone to a next level. In the past, maybe I would say, oh, they died middle age. Now I'm like 43. Like it's just a deeper level of consciousness. And as I was sitting in the power, I got this message that time is the human currency with the spirit world. Time. And our mediumship is really difficult to develop if we are in a frenetic go, go, go survival mode place because we can't give it time. And when I can just allow myself to breathe as I sit in the power, it's so amazing how that has shifted everything for me in my mediumship development. Basically, what we give our time to, time is the human currency. It's like the only currency that really exists. Everything else is made up. And what we give our time to is basically what the immaterial world, the non-material world gives back to us. So where we decide to give our time is where they can give us connection and mastery and new awareness and new consciousness. And so truly, truly, what we decide to spend our time on is so important that we're conscious of it. Are we just scrolling? Are we arguing? Are we complaining? Are we doing what we love? Are we studying? Are we sitting with our guides? If we can just be so intentional and realize that time is the only real resource that humans have to give, I think that that is so important to remember. Time and love, but time is what really, it's what we barter with to the spirit world. It's like, here's our time. Like we are willing to give our consciousness and direct our time and love to you. And then that's how they can build the connection back. I just felt like that was such a powerful message and it made so much sense to me. And so what happened was I was sitting in the power. Usually I would sit in the power for like 10 minutes, then go right into a reading and then hop into another one and then do an email reading and then make a post and then record a magic hour. And so I have had more time in my schedule and I just sat in this expansiveness. And my consciousness is usually kind of at the top of my crown. That's where I connect with angels. The heart chakra is where I connect with the spirit world. And my consciousness just like shifted down into my heart chakra. And I started to feel the air around me get thick. And it got to this point where this presence came in, like how you would feel if you were in a room and someone was standing next to you, you could feel them. It got so thick until it felt like a physical presence was there. And in my mind's eye, I saw a really heavy, overweight man. And it was almost like his energy was starting to like sit on me. And I got really freaked out. This was pretty soon after COVID. And I was like, did I do something wrong? Like, is this my guides making me feel heavy because I'm not supposed to be like sitting in the power? Should I be resting more? That day, I had my mediumship mentorship and I asked him about it. And he was like, no, this is exactly what needs to happen. He's like, this is the beginning of being able to go into trance. When you feel them start to like sit on you and the heaviness, like the air around you getting heavier, their energy is starting to blend with yours in a way that you can take a step back and let them come forward. And it was the first time I had ever experienced that. And he was like, this means that your capacity for the power is deepening because you're getting to deeper levels of spiritual connection. Whereas before you kind of just had a surface level of the spirit world around you, you're sinking into the spirit world around you and you're letting them come around you more and more. And so what was crazy about this is that if you listen to episode 101 and some other podcasts that I've been on, I tell the story about how there was an overweight man sitting in my computer chair making it swivel and creak. And that's the guide that came in, this overweight man who came in while I was sitting in the power, who was trying to wake me up to my mediumship gifts the entire time. And that's what's so interesting because on our episode, I think it's 130 with Tiffany, Tiff's Ghost Talk, where they say when you get the message, it stops. So for people who are highly intuitive and sensitive and have the potential for mediumship, spirit will send signs that they're around and then we misinterpret it as a scary haunted thing. And it's like, that's what happened to me when it was my guide making my computer chair swivel and creak. But in reality, he's like, no, I'm actually just right here. And so I felt him starting to blend with me and I knew that it was the same type of guy. And he gave me a feeling that he was one of like the founding fathers of the spiritualist movement. And it was very interesting and wild. And it was just such an aha moment for me because I was like, wait, that's who I was scared of so long ago.
That is so cool and so full circle to like have that realization. And also, I'm so curious. I'm sure this will happen naturally, but for you to like connect further to this person and find out more about who he is and what he did and what that might lead to for your own development. And it's just so cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so excited. And it just feels really cool because you don't know what you don't know. And I didn't realize that this like next level surrender to the power, like I didn't understand that from such a busy pace of life. And I know it's impossible to just be a monk in modern day society unless you completely remove yourself. But I think spaciousness and time is so imperative for spiritual connection. And this goes for everybody now. Like even if you're just doing self divination, if you are just giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes and like just frenetically looking for an answer, it doesn't give you the time to just exhale. And as I say, clear out the cobwebs of consciousness, which are like the basic racing thoughts that it just takes the first 10 minutes of meditation to go quiet. And there's just such a wellspring of beauty on the other side of silence and time. Silence plus time plus surrender equals a wellspring of spiritual beauty. And I think the more we can practice creating space for silence, it's like Eileen Davies said, I quote this all the time, that silence is for the soul what food is to the body. It's just a necessary part of the formula.
Yes. And I think this speaks to such a larger point about every aspect of our life. It's like we want these things in our life. We want to be doing these things with our time. Are we really giving ourselves the space and time for them? Something for me that's been coming up a lot is like, I really want to connect with nature more and I want to make it more of a priority. And I feel it so deep in my heart that I'm not giving it the priority that I want to. And I think what I'll often do is I'll feel that call and then try and hurriedly book some sort of nature getaway to like fill my cup. And then I don't often feel that fulfilled by it because it feels rushed and it feels like I'm trying to cram it into my life. I often feel that way about my creativity that I'm just rushing to add it in because I'm trying to do a million things. And I feel like, it can get overwhelming with life because there's so many amazing things to do. And I think we can all feel a little bit like, oh no, I want to do all these cool things. How do I fit them in? But I feel like this kind of speaks to the shift you've made of like, if something really matters to us, we need to carve out the space and time to truly honor it intentionally with the time it really deserves. Because when we try to do everything we want to do, we don't do any of it very well. And when we choose instead to maybe do half of those things or a quarter of those things, but give them the real space and time that they deserve, I think we'll find that they fill our cup like we think doing all the things would have.
Absolutely. I think it's really powerful going into 2025. Pick a key word that you want more of in your life, whether it's creativity, nature, connection to spirit, angelic connection, inner child happiness. Pick something. And then remember that your currency to creating that in your life is time. How can you give time, intentional time to it? And I think that's such a beautiful way of looking at New Year's resolutions. I always say your resolutions that you create give an insight into the unhealed parts of yourself that you think you need to change to be worthy. So keep that in mind as we're moving into the new year. That's a message I share like every single year as a reminder. And I think instead, if we can focus on a keyword and say, okay, I'm ready to make a barter with the spirit world and the immaterial world and the universe. My barter is this amount of time. Now, look at how that thing that I'm calling in will fill my life because of the time that I'm giving to it.
I love that so much. It's such a practical way to approach the things we want to call into our life versus I feel like what I'll do is like make a huge list of all these things that I want in the new year and then feel panicked about how I'm going to make it all happen. And by February, I feel like, oh, I've already failed or whatever. And I think this is so much more practical and it's so much more about like the call of our heart versus like saying that you want to call in creativity, let's say. That's not saying I want to make a movie or I want to book a show or I want to write a book. It's like I want to make space for my creativity. And that can look a million ways. And the point is that being creative fulfills you, not just that you wrote a book fulfills you or that you made a movie fulfills you, but that the act of creation, the act of being in creativity fulfills you. And so then it feels a little bit more practical or like the space to connect with your angels and guides. It's like, that fulfills you. So making sure that you create the space for it allows for it to be a part of your life without then needing to have all the answers of how.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I also just want to say, I feel like we're all collectively coming into a shift of less is more, where it's like for so many years as a society, we've just been about consume, 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 more, 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 put out, put out, put out, put out, productive, productive, productive. And now we're coming into a phase I really feel where it's like, no, center, groundedness, nervous system regulation, like connecting back to what's important. And I think we're going to see less consumerism. It's like the more the pendulum swings to spiritual awakening and consciousness, we no longer need external things to fill a void within us. That's consumerism. And I think that as we set our resolutions or our intentions for 2025, I think we'll see a little bit more of that shift of like, I feel regulated enough in my nervous system to just set one intention for the year. Because just like the trauma response of me staying busy so that I wouldn't feel the pain of losing my mom, I think that when we set long laundry lists of resolutions, that's a trauma response to survive in this hectic world and society. And so I think it's a sign of great faith in your angels and your guides to leave space for them to fill without trying to have every single thing planned and accounted for. And if you can just pick 1 to 2 things that you're really trying to spend time on this upcoming year, I think that is a powerful declaration of trust in the universe.
Yes, that resonated with me so deeply. And I get the impulse to try and shape and control everything. We're forward moving creative people. And when we desire something or are lit up about something, we want to make it happen. And I think, it's that balance of having those intentions and then trusting, creating the space to be filled. If we fill every moment, then we don't have any space for the universe to deliver a magical, unexpected twist. Something you've said that I've been sharing with friends lately that I love too is when you're manifesting or calling things in, you'll add, or something really great I don't even know about. And I love that so much because it really shifted my perspective in terms of like, oh, I think I want this thing so badly. And maybe there's something even more magical that I don't even know about. And if I don't leave any space for that, then I'll never receive that.
Yeah, it's what my mom taught me, this or something better. That's what she would say. And I think as we set our intentions for 2025, I don't even love the word resolution. It's just like something about resolution feels strict or firm or something. I really like intention because, sort of like the theme we keep coming back to of control versus trust, resolution feels controlling, like I'm resolved to do this. And intention feels like this or something better. Like, this is my intention, but let's see where the journey of this year takes us. And I think that's a beautiful way to enter it.
I just love that so much. That's absolutely how I'm going to approach it. And I already have my words in my mind.
What's your word?
Well, I picked 3 because I'm an overachiever, but creativity is one of my words. And nature, but specifically connecting with water in nature. I've really realized that part of what I feel like I'm missing is that I'm never like swimming. It's kind of hard to swim in the ocean in LA. It's very cold and the water's kind of rough. So even when I go, I rarely get in. So I need to do that more. But just finding my way to lakes and rivers and even places in the world where swimming in the ocean is more accessible. So connecting with nature, creativity, and community.
I love that. My intention words for the next 2 years, what the heck, 1 year.
Talk about an overachiever.
I'm like, this is my 5-year plan. My main word is health. Like, this year has been really challenging for my health, and I've had my autoimmune flare. And if it keeps flaring, the doctors want to put me on gnarly medicine, and that doesn't feel aligned for me. So, especially as Ari and I are starting to think about fertility and kids, health is really a big one for me this year, and I will be investing my time into that. It's just so beautiful how time is a resource that we all have to give. I loved the way that my spirit guides presented that to me. I hope you guys resonate with that too. And I think it's my Capricorn stellium. I'm like, yes, time. And so that is a big word for me. And I think spaciousness is a big word for me. I want to invest my time into spaciousness, creating more spaciousness, creating more room for spirit to fill, because I think that's how I can be of service to the collective in a bigger way, is if I have more empty space to be less Taylor led and more spirit led for what wants to come through. So I really look forward to those 2 words.
That's beautiful. And they go so hand in hand with each other.
So true. So true. And it is really interesting to think about how this whole theme of the goals that we set being connected to what we think we need to be worthy and to be successful. And I think there's a lot for reflection in that. And if the idea of just setting an intention of one word feels like not enough, or it's triggering, or it's activating, I think it's a really good opportunity to sit with that and be like, why does this not feel grounded to me or something that's available to me?
Yeah. And knowing as well, we are putting the limitations on ourselves. If you choose one thing you want to focus on, that doesn't mean there won't be this space for other magical things to come through or other like ramifications of that choice. It's like by creating more spaciousness in your life, who knows what else will show up and come through? Perhaps community will come through, and that maybe that wasn't the word you sent out, but just knowing that like, we don't have to shape our entire existence. We are co-creating. And if we don't leave that space for the co-creation, I think it'll come through anyway, but maybe it'll just have a harder time getting to us and being received by us.
Yeah, it might take a little longer. And the message that comes through as you're speaking is like, these words that we're setting intentions for are very much led by our angels and guides, and they're directing our consciousness to exactly what we're calling in. It just might not be in the way that we're expecting. And so I think surrendering to these intentions and these keywords that our heart is asking for, that is our GPS. That's all we have to follow. And so just trust that.
Yes, trust is so, so important. And yeah, just such a magic wand. I feel like trusting. I'm really trying to practice that.
Absolutely. So let's dive into a couple listener questions and stories.
Okay, great. I have one that is both a story and a question from Carla. Hi, Taylor and Claire. Thank you so much for what you both are doing to our collective consciousness in the hummingbird community. Your Sitting with Spirit message was for me on episode 134. I get physical sensations when things with deeper meanings have resonance. And when the Spirit Baby Girl message came through, all of the evidence pointed to my daughter, who turns 2 next week. Another Scorpio. She was born with a chronic lung condition very similar to cystic fibrosis and also has hearing loss and is still nonverbal. I actually don't go to many psychics or mediums because I don't know if I will outlive my daughter in human form, and I find those in predictive practices predatory, so I protect my spirit as best I can from anyone revealing that message. My angels, guides, and my higher self don't want me to know when she dies. My angels have told me I will witness her passing, but they don't want me to know if it will be when I'm in my human form or if I myself will be in spirit when it happens. And it's not my business to know. It's not the point. My purpose is to love her every day, letting go of control of whatever the outcome may be. This type of practice, this act of love, has expanded me in more ways than I could ever have imagined for myself and led me back to all my spiritual gifts I had previously neglected. Because I had so much courage in my heart because of how strong I have and continue to become simply by loving my daughter. So when your Spirit Baby Girl came through, the evidence was staggering. She has an older brother, she was born with this lung condition, and we stayed by her bedside attached to all the wires and monitors for weeks and weeks. I rocked her to sleep daily, and my spiritual awakening, or the remembering, happened during this time. Her name starts with an L. I had a conversation with her during her first days of life when her tests and results were all pointing to a lifelong chronic illness full of challenges and difficulties. I told her she didn't have to stay for us if she didn't want to, that I would understand and love her all the same, but ultimately that she got to choose. She stayed. She turns 2 next week. The message of resonance I got from your Sitting with Spirit was that she heard me. She heard me during that conversation. She was never scared during that time, and there is hope for our future. She knows how much I love her, whatever comes. Keep going as a warrior for love. I personally do believe babies are still half in our world as humans, but half in the spirit world during the early days of life. Is it possible to receive messages from spirit of those who are still living, but maybe when they were in spirit form? Thank you always for being warriors of love yourselves. Best, Carla.
Ooh, what an interesting question and what a touching story. Thank you so much for sharing your experience, Carla. And I'm so happy that your beautiful daughter is still here with us too. Just full chills as Claire was reading that. Beautiful. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about that the question/story touched on. One thing I want to share is actually from my mediumship mentor. And he says, and this is in regards to you not wanting the message of who is going to pass first, your daughter or you, which I completely understand. How would that message be beneficial? I don't know. And that's a perfect example of why I don't love focusing on predictions, because I think they often come from an unhealed, wounded place. And I think current high vibe guidance of how to make the most of the here and now is rooted, again, coming back to that theme this episode of trust and faith and intention and openness. So that being said, my mediumship mentor, one of them, told me when you're getting a reading and from the mediumship side and when you're giving a reading, ask yourself, is this message helpful, hopeful, or healing? And if a message is not hopeful, helpful, or healing, that is not an ethical message to give, because it's more about the ego of the person getting it right than what the sitter will actually benefit from. And so I think your instinct to be like, nope, a message about me or my daughter's passing is not hopeful, helpful, or healing is perfect. You have such strong spiritual boundaries and such a good instinct with that. And I just want to share those parameters with the hummingbirds, because you can be very clear before you go into a reading with your angels and guides of like, I don't want to hear about this as well. And it most likely won't come through to the reader. So have those boundaries up with the information that you allow into your psyche, because truly things can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is also why I'm not a huge fan of predictions. It's like if a reader tells you that you're going to do XYZ 5 years from now, you'll be thinking about that for the entire 5 years, and your focus and attention on that will probably make it happen. I love Carla's instinct there. I think it's right on. And also, her daughter's journey isn't just about Carla. It impacts Carla in a big way, but her daughter's soul has her own lessons and journey and timelines. And that was something I really had to learn about with my mom, is that her time of passing actually had nothing to do with me. It had to do with her and her path and her journey and when she had to go. And I think that's like one of the hardest pills to swallow when you're the one left earthside. But again, I think we all reunite in the spirit world. I'm really positive of that. So, going to your question of, is it possible when somebody is living here earthside to get a spirit message from them? I do think that there are special cases where people are in what I call the in-between. And so I see this with dementia patients and Alzheimer's patients. I can connect to them mediumistically. So what has happened to me personally in sessions is basically what I'm shown is that when you have Alzheimer's and dementia, the part of you that is spirit is hovering just above your head, and your body and mind are going on automatic pilot. So it's really interesting because you are kind of in this place where you're in spirit and you can like witness what your family is saying to you. You can witness the people that are in the room. You can send them love, but your mind and your body are just going through the motions on automatic pilot. So there's kind of this like splice there. And I have had really interesting readings where a grandmother came through and she had dementia and she was saying like, I'm going to be passing soon and this is what I need from you. And she was giving her granddaughter really clear instructions and the music she wanted and, all these things and these messages that she wasn't able to say. And so when your loved one has dementia or Alzheimer's or cognitive decline in that way, just know that their soul is very much there. And the love that you give them is so appreciated. And they do acknowledge that and know that. That being said, I think it's really interesting because I've never connected with a baby in that same way. I've only connected with people who are fully on the other side or have a disease or are like literally about to pass any minute and are kind of in that in-between state of consciousness. And even when they are in that in-between state of consciousness, you can kind of feel it's a little bit different because they're like trying to, like, it's almost like they're in a wind tunnel and it's like really loud, then really soft. And they're like trying to get the message to you. That being said, spirit works in amazing ways. I don't claim to have all of the answers. So there definitely could be a possibility that if time is not linear, only our perception of it is, and our perception and our physical body is like a bookmark for consciousness, there's definitely a possibility that your daughter, before she came earthside, knew about this moment and, planned things. But I would say my instinct most likely is that a couple different babies and guides in spirit with a similar message teamed up together. And that's what I see a lot, is that when I'm doing the sitting with spirit and when it's like a situation where a lot of people, like when I was at the Tyler Henry demonstration, he would give so much evidence and like 5 people would be like, I can take all of that. And they'd all be sitting next to each other. And it's like your loved ones in spirit planned for this section to like connect with each other and had similar form of passing in similar situations. So I think the spirit world likes to bring people together here that have had similar experiences in how they lost people. And so I think that that is so beautiful. And I have a feeling that your daughter's like spirit guides and maybe even your other ancestors in spirit made sure that you got that message. So I can't say for sure if it was your actual daughter, but I do think babies are definitely super aware of their surroundings and of the spirit world around them. But my perception of their energy is not that their consciousness is spliced. It's that their third eye is wide open, but they're very firmly in their physical body. So it's the people who are more on the verge of passing that I think are sort of halfway out in a spirit way. And I think babies are fully in, just wide open to the perception around them. That's my perception. It doesn't mean that that's definitively what it is. I can't speak to that, but that's what I feel around it. And I feel like your daughter and her guides did a great job of getting you the message that you need. And I'm sure your guides were involved as well. It's like Everybody's working together. We have a whole community and team. And I think that that's super special.
That's so interesting and such a beautiful story, Carla. Thank you for sharing that. It really touched me. And we actually emailed back and forth, and I emailed her a response on her daughter's actual birthday. So it was
Aww.
beautiful timing. So we're wishing her a happy, happy birthday, because I know that's past now. I love how you've talked about that in terms of people with dementia. And I think that's such a comforting way to understand what's happening with their consciousness. My friend's grandmother has dementia, and recently she had a dream where she was in it, and she was like, just felt like she was there, almost like visiting me. And so obviously thought of you, Taylor, and I was like, I bet she was.
Exactly. They find a way. They find a way. The whole dementia thing actually reminds me of an interesting thing that I just read, which I'm starting to read. And at time of recording, Mercury is retrograde in Sagittarius. And a part of my interpretation of that is revisiting ancient wisdom, and not just ancient, but revisiting kind of schools of thought, because I feel like today in the spiritual world everything can feel really shallow. Like everybody's kind of regurgitating the same concepts, and there isn't true like mastery of the craft. Like people are just taking a weekend certification and then they're like, I'm a master and I'm going to start charging money. I'm not saying everyone. I'm just saying like there's a general feeling of quick consumption. There's no barrier to entry to have a platform. Like in the past, before social media, you had to like write a book or be an expert or be known as things. And now anybody can just be like, this is my prediction. And the crazier it is, the more views they get. Sensationalism is sort of applauded and recognized more than grounded, discipline. I don't know. My Capricorn stellium is just talking, but I'm kind of going backwards to look at people who did groundbreaking work in this field, and not too far backwards, but I'm reading a book. It's called Life After Life by Raymond Moody. And I haven't fully started it yet, but he's this doctor that analyzed hundreds of cases of near death experiences and compiled like the different details and reoccurring themes. And I was reading the foreword to the book written by Dr. Eben Alexander. And there was such an interesting concept in it, which is the idea that the brain doesn't create consciousness, that it's a filter for consciousness. So where we think like when you die, it's lights out, because our consciousness and our personality and everything comes from the brain. That's like kind of the common consensus. But after hundreds and hundreds of cases where the brain is dead, but the consciousness is still having an experience, they can realize through evidence that actually the brain is just a program that we filter consciousness through. And I think that that is such an interesting perspective. And it's kind of how, like, when humanity is ready for an idea, the idea comes to multiple civilizations across history because consciousness is coming through to different filters. And so circling back to dementia, I think that that filter is like the ego story of like who the brain tells us that we are, but like the consciousness of higher self is like up here, but it's not filtering through because there's some illness in the brain. So it's just on this automatic pilot of how we filter consciousness instead of new consciousness coming through. And so I think that that's really interesting, but it doesn't mean that their consciousness isn't there and doesn't exist. It's just not cognitively filtering through and working in a new way. It's like in a loop. It's like a malfunction of thought.
That's so cool and really resonates with me. I feel like that feels really true. And I always love, it's so funny. I was just talking about this last night. I really love Jim Carrey, and he has a lot of deep thoughts on what's going on. And he has this great quote where he says, I used to think that I was a man experiencing the universe, but now I think that I'm the universe experiencing a man. I really feel like that is another explanation of what you just said, right? It's like the universal consciousness exists and then is experienced on an individual, like filtered through our individualism in this plane of existence. But it is existing somewhere else in its fullness, and we are a slice of it in a way.
Yeah. And I think that's why babies and kids are so awake, because the part of the brain, it's like as we get older, the filter gets more and more defined, as the brain develops. So it's fully developed at 26. And by then we can fully sort of lose our detachment to the spirit world because we're so in the filter of everything that we've learned. And so I just find it such a fascinating, and I love everything that fuses science and evidence with this work because it's just my vibe. This concept also connects back to mediumship development and spiritual development, because when we are in our interpreting brain, that's the filter. When we are open to knowledge and consciousness itself, that is spirit communication. For example, I'm in a reading, and this is what you start to learn as you're a developing medium, but also an angel reader. So this actually happened in a client session the other day. So I was connecting with her sister-in-law on the other side, and she was talking, the sister-in-law was telling me, like, we loved astrology. We bonded over astrology. And then she showed me the Gemini symbol. And so my interpreting brain, which again, we try not to do this, my interpreting brain was like, was she a Gemini? That's not what she showed me. She showed me the Gemini symbol. And the sitter said, no, I have a Gemini tattoo on me. And she was with me when I got it, or we bonded over my Gemini tattoo. And that's what she's talking about. So that's an example of how my mind tried to come in. And that's why a little mediumship trick is to zoom in on the evidence. When you can zoom in on the evidence itself and just say exactly what you're seeing, that is the way to just get it out, instead of being like, this is my interpretation of what's coming through because my brain needs it to make sense. And I feel like that's applicable to any type of spiritual practice. The mind wants to interpret, and literally, what is interpretation if not a filtering of consciousness? And so as much as you can just look at consciousness without attaching a story to it, that is the closest you will get to truth.
Yes. And that applies to everything in our life. It's like all of our experiences, we then filter through this like categorizing filter, and we decide that was good and that was bad, or that means I'm worthy, or that means I'm unworthy. And that's just us trying to define the experience versus allowing it to be nuanced, allowing it to mean what it's going to mean versus what we decide it needs to mean or are afraid it might mean.
Yes. And we project things onto other people, and we assume, it's like the more you open up to this theory of the brain being a filter for consciousness, the more you realize we're doing it every single day, every single time. And the more we can just sit with the truth of what is, the more powerful we'll be.
Yes. This actually ties into our next question if we want to jump into that.
Let's do it.
Okay, great. This is a question from Kat. Hey, lovely Claire and Taylor. I was just wondering, and I'm so grateful for the internet and that I can contact you who I trust about this. When I meditate, I see lots of images, really clearly, but often I don't know what they mean, such as a snail, a man from a past time's face looking angry, fire, a caterpillar, but lots and lots of them. I'm so grateful that I'm being shown these images, but how do I start to work them out? Much, much love and eternal gratitude to you, Kat.
I love this, Kat. And it makes sense because this is how my guides communicate a lot, through symbols. And as you develop, your guides will start to get more literal and specific with you, where it's like, no, this is not a symbol. He was a basketball player. Like, you'll see like the actual thing. But this is a really good starting point, is working with symbols. And so I think it's really beautiful that the filter is open, the tap is on, and you're getting all of these symbols. And it's how you start to create a language with your guides. And it takes a lot of time and trust to rely on this. And sometimes you'll be in, like, say you're a professional reader, you'll be in readings where you get the same symbol for 5 sessions in a row. And it's like, no way did this person's dad walk out on them 5 sessions in a row. But then actually, yes, they did. And that is what they all came to talk about. And they're all in a row. And like, that's their way of building trust with you with the sign. They're like, see, we're going to hammer this sign home until you get it. So that being said, a snail, the element of fire, what do you associate with that? This is where I think the next level of your development, and for anybody listening, when you get a image or a flash of an image, what do you feel about it? Do you have a feeling, a knowing, starting to blend your clairs? So do you hear something when you see the snail? All of our clair senses want to work together. So for me, snail is actually one of my symbols, and it means somebody who feels like life is going really slow. And so what do you associate with the fire element? What do you associate with the man from an older time looking stern? Is that a grandfather energy? Start to flesh this out, because our angels and guides work with our own subconscious associations. So if they are giving you symbols and you quote unquote don't get it right what they were trying to say, that's not even the biggest problem, because you can attach your own meaning to them. So I would recommend writing down a list of the symbols that your guides and angels and ancestors are presenting to you, and then say like, okay, fire equals initiation, Aries energy, and bravery. And snail equals needing to slow down, needing more rest. And the old man's face means ancestral healing with a difficult grandfather figure. And starting to create your own language with them. And I think that's where they're going with you. You don't have to quote unquote get it right, like I was saying. Just assign what your subconscious association or conscious association is with that symbol. Another thing you can do if you're feeling stuck on something, because when you're working with angels, which I feel like you are, when you're working with angels, they speak very symbolically, and they can also give images and symbols that I call invitations for connection. So like, for example, a symbol that came through in like a couple readings ago was like this woman standing in front of a doorway made of turquoise light. And that symbol basically meant her pathway forward was embracing her intuitive gifts that she had been too scared to before, because turquoise is my color for intuition. And so if you get a symbol like that and you're like, I'm completely stumped and my mind is coming in trying to filter this consciousness and make sense of it and attach a meaning to it, then pull a card for each symbol. That's something you can do too, is like use your other divining tools. It's an advanced level to be able to just sit with no divining tools and get the information that you need, especially if it's self-divination. So I would recommend doing that. And I would recommend just even for each symbol, maybe writing a little blurb about it. Like, what does it bring up for you? What do you feel when you think about snails? Are there any memories you can attach to that? Because sometimes how the spirit world works as well is bringing up things that we would understand as a memory or a strong association to talk about what that person is going through. Sometimes my guides will show me like a particular relative in my life that I'm no contact with. So I'll bring up, oh, I know they're no contact, but this time I'm feeling it's their mom and they want to talk about that. So sometimes they bring up flashes of our own things that we will understand. So don't overthink it. Just like we were talking before, the highest way to connect with them is not overthinking it, not attaching a meaning or a story to it, but just going with psychically what you feel, know, or sense when that symbol comes through. And if you don't know, you don't know. Just write it down and you can go with your first instinct as well.
That's really cool. It's like almost like cheat code for you. When I was younger, I had a book of hieroglyphs. And so there was like that table that like this symbol meant this, and then we would like write with them or whatever. But it makes sense that that would work for us, you know, because there's all sorts of different attachments to different things for different people, like how water means so much to me, and to someone else is maybe like, yeah, water, whatever. You know, so when I see water, it means, you know, home, it means my true self, it means freedom, it means connection, you know, all those things. And so only we know what those symbols mean to us. And then spirit can work with those connections to allow us to understand more deeply what we're seeing and feeling.
And going back to the idea of a brain as a filter for consciousness, not the creation of consciousness, your association with water is like freedom, joy, love. But somebody who had a medical background might be like hydration is my association with water. So you start to get into the different facets of how our consciousness is used by our spirits. Like a medical intuitive might think hydration with water. Somebody who is a geographical intuitive that focuses on location might think, oh, oh, islands when I see water. It's like we all have our different languages and we all have the perfect guides who work in sync with that. So that's why I'm saying Claire might have one association with water. I might have another. Go with yours because your guides know your brain's little filter system and are working with that.
Yes, this is like just such a small tangent off that, but I was watching this cool nature documentary and they were talking about how this particular island is where all these turtles come back to have their eggs, and that there's a smell associated with the island that lets them know I'm close to the island. And so the documentary was saying for them, the smell is land, but for us, that smell would be the ocean. And really, what we're both smelling is the seashore. But I just loved that, how like our different perspective shapes what that means to us. I smell that and I think ocean, and a turtle smells that and thinks land, you know?
So cute.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's all just different sides of the same coin and just stay open. And it's exciting. This shows some development on your journey intuitively that you're getting these symbols. So keep going. I think that's so exciting. And working with symbols is a way that I work professionally. Like when I see a rainbow around someone, it's my sign for a beautiful new chapter. When I see a sunrise, it means the light's coming out after a really dark time. If I see, the third eye, it means you're somebody that can get your own messages and that your angels want you to connect deeper with it. It's like I have a whole language with my angels. And when I tune into your energy at the beginning of a session, it's like boom, 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 exactly like you said. 3 symbols off the bat. I know what their angels want to talk about with them. And more likely than not, it's what they came to ask about anyway. So working with symbols is incredibly powerful. And it just creates this, exactly like what Claire said, like a hieroglyphic legend of exactly what the language is. And it's just a shortcut for angelic communication.
So cool. Thank you so much for sending that in, Kat. Do we have time for one more story?
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. So we'll have one more listener story, which was such a beautiful message. I really wanted to get to it. This is a story from Clarissa. Hi, Taylor and Claire. Thank you both for bringing so much love, knowledge, and magic to us on the podcast. Each week, I find that the guest and topics align perfectly to what I need to hear. The Samhain episode with Kate felt kismet. On this week, I moved in with my in-laws for a bit to help care for my mother-in-law, who was starting chemo treatment for stage 4 lung cancer, and my father-in-law, who had just gotten back surgery. On Tuesday, October 29th, as I was packing to head to their house, a little stressed and anxious, a light green butterfly appeared in my tote with all my groceries. It literally came out of nowhere. It could have been a moth, I'm not sure, but as soon as I saw it, it felt as if time paused for that moment. I gently guided it outside and it slowly moved until it began to fly out the back door. It truly felt like a magical moment. I don't know the symbolism behind this, but my husband and I just stared at each other after it flew away. Later, as we were driving to my in-laws, it was evening and it was dark out. A white owl flew right in front of our car. It was amazing. It felt like it was only our car whose path it crossed. I couldn't believe it. I was filled with hope and comfort. In a reading, Taylor told me owls are a sign from my angels. At that moment, I knew I was in the right place. This journey has been extremely difficult, with my in-laws both needing extra support at the same time. We have been anxious, not knowing what to expect, but both of the signs felt comforting and reassuring. Then on Wednesday, October 30th, I heard the episode with Kate where Taylor and Kate both talk about their experience with their mothers. It felt kismet. I loved the episode and your conversation. Treatment has started and the symptoms are slowly impacting my mother-in-law, but I'm keeping my faith and supporting her. My father-in-law is healing quickly from his back surgery and seems to already be doing better. I don't know what the future holds, but the podcast, Taylor's teachings, and the signs from my angels are helping me better support my family. Thank you for sharing your experiences and bringing the light during dark times. With gratitude, Clarissa.
Clarissa, you're going to make me cry. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for sharing this. And I'm so sorry that your family is going through such a tough patch. And how lucky are they to have such a beautiful soul like you to show up for them? That's amazing. And as a collective, can we all just send a little love to Clarissa? Just take a moment and hold Clarissa in a warm color light of your choice and just send her a little strength. Send her mother in law a little strength. Send them all a little strength at this moment. Beautiful. And I just want to say, as soon as you said the owl flew in front of your car, I was like, her angels are working overtime. They're working overtime. And I just want to give a little bit of an interpretation of the butterfly and the owl, because these are two really common animal guides that come through to people. And I want to explain the symbolism, which beautifully ties back into the last question, because they're symbols and animal guides that I have a like index of information for. So it's a shorthand for when they come up. And a green butterfly is very significant because green is the color of the healer when I see green. And it's also the color of the heart chakra. So the heart chakra is green. And it's like, now is this moment where you are going through a deep transformation of the heart and a deep healing journey, and to just keep leaning into your heart and to follow your heart. The second thing is that owl comes through as a nocturnal animal in times where we can't see clearly, in times where there's a lot of shadow or darkness or unknown. And it helps us see through the dark. And it asks us to stay connected to our own intuition and wisdom. And as an animal that can turn its head almost all the way around, it helps us see from all different perspectives and angles. So I feel like the combination of these two animals is so powerful for your own like intuitive journey, your own healing journey, your own transformation into like a more powerful version of self. It's like you're just so supported. And I love the way that your angels and guides are getting you signs. And I love the way that in our reading together, they showed you an owl and then the owl came when you needed it. It's just beautiful confirmation. And I just want you to know how supported you are.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I'm sending you so, so much love. And it is just such a lovely thing to feel in moments that are difficult, that we're supported. This last week has been kind of challenging for me. And I feel like I see angel numbers a lot. And I feel like I have just been seeing angel numbers everywhere I go. I was with my friend's daughter last night and she got this new watch. And so she was announcing the time like every couple minutes. And she kept announcing it was like 4:22, and then later it was 5:22, and it was just random that she kept looking. And it was just comforting to me seeing that and feeling supported even when things are hard. And so I'm just so glad that you're feeling that support, and that Magic Hour is a place where you're feeling loved and supported. We're so grateful to have you in the Hummingbird community.
Yes, I love the hummingbird community so much. And a part of me is really struggling taking a break, but I'm going to be out of the country for the holidays and I'm going to not be around. And so it's going to be a nice energetic reset. And we'll come into season 2 with even more magic. And the break gives a good time for you guys to enjoy the holidays, but also to maybe catch up on old episodes. And make sure to write into us. Again, contact@magichourpod.com. What were your favorite episodes from season 1? What do you want more of in season 2? Are there any guests or topics you'd like to see? We love to hear your feedback.
Yes, and keep sending in your stories and questions. It's so wonderful to hear from you. No question is too small. No story is too personal. You know, we're just so excited to connect with you, and everything you share helps someone else. You know, because you might think, oh, well, this is just something I'm thinking about. But it turns out that it'll probably be something that is the exact thing that someone needed to hear. So you're doing spirits work also by writing into us, and we just love to hear it. So yes, more questions, more stories, and feedback on what you loved, what you want more of, so that we can make sure to do that for you.
Absolutely. We love you guys so much. And let's transition into sitting with spirit. Welcome to the last sitting with spirit of season 1. It's so bittersweet. I'm such a like nostalgic Scorpio. It's so hard for me to just let go and let things die away so that the new can be reborn. I'm like, not season 1 ending.
I'm so the same way. And it's so funny too, because like that's how we have new beginnings is endings, but my brain just like will not allow.
I know. I'm like, no. So the very first thing, so for those of you who are new to the podcast, sorry, we're about to go on a break. For those who are new, Sitting with Spirit is the section of the podcast where I sit with our angels and guides and I give the messages that come through for the collective. Take what suits you and resonates with you, leave the rest. So one of the very first things I saw was a bow and arrow pointed like all the way up, straight up. And it felt very connected to the Sagittarius season archer archetype, where it's our job to shoot for the stars, and where the arrow lands is literally none of our business. And the message that I got was aim high. And I felt like there was just this feeling here of like, don't worry, because as I was seeing this bow and arrow going up to the sky, I couldn't even see where it would land. I couldn't see where it was going. I couldn't see the target. It just felt like shooting in the right direction. And so I think that's the message here is like, aim high. Aim for shooting in the direction of your highest expression of power and love and joy and magic, and let the arrow land where it's going to. And as I got that image, I felt this sense of what best could be described as quiet faith, like quiet confidence. And I felt like that part of our heart that deep down knows all will be well is getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And it's that part of us that allows us to shoot high. It's that part of us that deep down knows that we are loved and supported and powerful and all will be well, that allows us to not settle and allows us to continue to explore this beautiful realm of the unknown, which is the realm of creation, just like we were saying with the end of season 1. So shoot high and know that that quiet confidence in yourself is so powerful. And that quiet confidence in yourself is the archer. That quiet confidence is the one that's able to draw the bow back and have enough confidence to let it go and shoot your shot. And the beautiful thing about a bow and arrow is that you can shoot again. If the arrow doesn't land where you want, you can keep shooting. So that's beautiful. And I just felt this warmth in the face and this joy. And again, like we were coming into this deeper level of our power. And when I feel warmth in the face, it's my sign for like phoenix energy and a rebirth moment. And I was seeing a baby, and it gave me a feeling like we're in this moment of new things being born, new versions of self being born, like the warmth of newness. And it feels exciting. So keep going with that. And then I saw a really interesting image and I was like doing everything in my power for my mind not to interpret it. But it was a table with two very different types of people sharing a meal. And the word that came through was reconciliation. And it gave me a feeling that there was something about breaking bread with people that you disagree with or that you have been distanced from. There's something about coming together, unity and healing. So that might be on the macro as well as the micro. This might be a time for healing wounded relationships or coming together in a way, or reconciling with someone you haven't seen in a long time. This might also be a bigger message for the collective of finding our commonalities and banding together in a way that serves us all as a collective. And then I also got such a delightful message. It was a question mark, but the question mark was so exciting. So it's almost like when we have questions or there's unknown things or we don't know what's coming, that's like a blessing. It's exciting. Instead of seeing those question marks as like, oh my gosh, fear, scary, what's going to fill it? And so in my readings, when I see a lot of question marks around people, it's my sign for, a lot of overthinking, a lot of unknowns, feeling out of control. But then in this reading, it was like the question marks were exciting, invitations to traverse the unknown, openings in your life for something exciting to fill it, and to be excited by the question marks, to be excited by the unknowns instead of desperately trying to fill them or cling on to outcomes. I also wanted to share on a little bit of a deeper level, a message that came through in a mediumship reading I did a couple of days ago that at the time my guides were like, share this on the next sitting with spirit. And this is that mental illness is just as real as physical illness. And that sometimes when we talk about mental illness, there's an interesting sense of guilt that comes along with it. Like, I should have just been stronger, or I should have not been so XYZ. Like, there's something about like victim shaming and blaming that we don't do when it comes to cancer or a physical illness. Nobody would be like, I just had to be more mentally resolved with cancer. It's like everybody supports people with physical illness because there's evidence on the external of the illness, but mental illness is no different. And in that reading, I saw this like childhood wound that was growing like a tumor in the brain that was causing mental illness. And it was a traumatic experience and it led to depression. The feeling there that I wanted to share is like, if you're struggling with mental illness or you love someone that is struggling with mental illness, be a lot lighter with yourself like you would be if it was a physical illness, because there can be a tendency to blame ourselves or want the person that's struggling to just snap out of it. That's not how illness works. And it's just as real as physical illness. And there's no one to quote unquote blame. That's not the point of this message. The point of this message is to treat it the same way you would treat somebody with a physical illness, and to not take it on as, oh, if I just did X, Y, and Z, they would still be here today, or they wouldn't have taken their life, or whatever it is. Because I think as a medium, when I sit with people who have lost a loved one to suicide, there's a lot more shoulda, coulda, woulda than people who pass from a heart attack or things like that. And the message from the spirit world so strong is there's no difference between those types of illnesses. It's all part of the physical body malfunctioning, and don't treat it any differently. And there's nothing you could have done about it. So that's a message that I wanted to share, especially as we come into the darker part of the year. I know this episode is coming out the week of the winter solstice, which is a very powerful time for mediumship and connections to past loved one. It's also a time of year where people who have seasonal depression can really struggle with their mental health. So take care of your mental health just like you would your physical health. Like, mental health is really coming up as a message here. And I feel this kind of push-pull between excitement and newness and shooting your shot, and question marks as invitations for excitement. But then there's also this like deeper level of tend to your mental health just like you would your physical. It's like exactly the same. When you have a mental and physical illness, it's like there's the manifestation of that. And then there's also preventative care for both. And so just tend to your mental health. I did have a woman in spirit coming through, and she was fabulous. She was so fun to connect with. She would have been very stylish, and she would have loved like bold prints and patterns. She was like jingling her arms that had like a ton of different bangles on them. And I feel like this woman would have kind of been like a firecracker. She looked very thin to me and willowy. And she also had blonde hair. And she showed me that she was obsessed with birds. And I felt like she had like a cockatoo or a parakeet. Like, I don't know exactly what she was showing me, but it's one of those like birds that are really beautiful. It was white. It had like a ruff of feathers, and that like she like loved her bird, and that her bird would just be like flying around the living room and like landing on her and like talking to her. And that like this woman really marched to the beat of her own drums. It feels like this would have been like an ant type of vibe, or even if she wasn't your aunt, it's like ant-like, that kind of energy. She feels very fun. It feels like she was never married. I feel like she was involved with like a much older man, but like they never got married because her independence and freedom was important to her. And I feel like there just like is this feeling with her of firecracker energy, and I'm going to do what I'm going to do and like march to the beat of my own drum. She feels very Aquarius to me in that way, in the good way. And then I also saw a cancer ribbon around her, and I did feel like she would have passed of cancer. And I did feel even her journey with cancer, I saw her in like a stylish headscarf and like a stylish hospital gown. It's like she still had her flair through the very end. And she really wanted to highlight that like she never let it get the best of her light and her energy. And then for some reason, she was showing me a pair of pants that were like black and white zebra stripes. And I felt like there might be a photo of you and her in those pants, or something about those pants being significant, and you would know her by her black and white pants. And so her message is basically be you. In a world full of gray and people trying to be everyone else, be you. Because this woman really feels like an individual to me. It feels like her life didn't make sense to the people around her, and that she did not care. Like, she literally was just having fun dancing through life, and loved her birds and loved her wine and was just doing her thing. And so her message is like, life is too short not to have fun. Be you. And in a world full of people conforming and being gray, don't be afraid to be a hot pink streak within that. And I do feel like there's just a feeling of cheer up, don't sweat the small stuff. I know that message has come forward before, and it's not that she's saying don't feel your feelings. And I also feel like there was a tie to bingo with her, and I feel like you might have played bingo with her, going to a bingo hall. It just feels like she liked to have fun. And the last message I want to give from her is that one of the best ways that you can honor your ancestors is to live your most fun, full life. That's what she's saying on the other side. It's like, that's what makes me happy, not when you cry for me, when you live the best qualities of me through you, which is my fun and my authenticity. And so none of our past loved ones in spirit want us to suffer. And I know sometimes we can have this guilty feeling, and the holidays can bring up a lot of grief where it's like, oh, it's a dishonor to their memory if I'm living a good life without them here, because that means I'm not like honoring them, or I didn't love them if I can be happy without them here. But her message is the exact opposite of that. Like, no, actually, we love to see you lit up and being a streak of hot pink in a world full of gray. That makes your past loved ones in the spirit so happy. And so I feel like overall, the messages today are very Sagittarian and very much about just having fun, marching to the beat of your own drum. And just don't forget to aim your arrow high. And the more you strengthen your nervous system, your ability to trust, your ability to loosen the reins of control, and that little higher self voice that whispers that all will be well, the higher you can aim your arrow and the more confidence you have to shoot your shot.
Such a beautiful message for us here at the end of the year. Just resonated so deeply with all of it, particularly the arrow. I just loved that. I feel like I'm in a moment right now where I'm wishing for a version of what I want that isn't like the highest version of it. You know, it's the one I can see. So it was a good reframe to choose instead, not for what is almost what we want, but what about shooting for what is beyond our wildest dreams of what we want, and trusting that all will be well. And like you said, you can shoot another arrow if you need to. And I also just loved what you spoke about with mental illness, because I think even to a degree, like sometimes the word illness, when it comes around that, can even make some of us not even realize that we fall under that category too. Like we all have these wounds and things that we can work through to have a more fulfilling heart-led life. And something I'm really trying to trust into is like, we might know logically how to not be this way or how to fix this thing, but it's also like a journey to shift ourselves. Just like it would be to heal our physical body, it takes some time to heal our mental space as well, even once we become aware of the way to heal. So just being gentle with yourself as you're on that journey. And I know the holidays can bring up a lot of stuff. So I just loved imagining this fun aunt in spirit, you know, encouraging us to not sweat the small stuff and to really be us.
Yeah. And I think also past generations, of course, no generation is perfect, and a lot of stuff that can be better with every generation, including our own. But there's something about her too that's like living through hard times, but still seeing what our grandparents lived through and like their ability to still have fun and things like that. There's something there that I feel like she's trying to communicate of like, even through the darkest times or like the most challenging times, you can still find ways to incorporate more fun and play and be in control of your own light. Don't let the macro decide what your light level will be. You shine your brightest, and it will give permission to other people to do the same.
Absolutely. It's such a gift to be in your full, authentic self to yourself and everyone around you.
Absolutely. And I feel like the arrow shooting high also really resonates with me now that I'm thinking about it, because it's like, that's what I'm doing with Angels and Amethyst 2.0. I'm daring to shoot my shot in a different direction and have faith of where the arrow is going to land. And I feel really grateful for that.
Yeah, it's like what you have already is amazing and beautiful, and you could stay in that. But there is a dream even more brilliant that you're allowing yourself to dream, and the possibilities by choosing to dream that big become even more expanded. And it's so exciting. I'm so excited for you and all of us because we get to be a part of it. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to create a container that when you're on the other side of it, does a similar thing to a one-on-one session with me, where you have more clarity and rootedness and connection to your own angels and guides and validation. And I'm just so excited to have the space to continue to flesh out what that will be. So all of you hummingbirds, we are all coming into our 2.0 version, or maybe 3.0, 4.0, 5.0. But just like, Claire and I, Angels and Amethyst, Magic Hour, we're ending season 1. Like, let's all collectively set an intention for season 2 and us 2.0, and what that intention word is that we're shooting with our bow and arrow into the stars, and then just let go of everything else and just put in your currency, which is time, to what you want to create.
I love that. Thank you, Taylor. I will definitely be doing that.
Yeah, so much love, everyone. I'm so excited to connect with you all in 2025. Find my new offerings at angelsandamethyst.com. And if you're looking for some angelic connection, take one of my pre-recorded workshops, whether it's the Be Your Own Angelic Intuitive, Healing the Witch Wound, working with your angels to attract a soulmate connection. Code 333 gives $33 off. And while the podcast is on a break, it's a perfect time for you to go at your own pace journey of deeper connection.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great idea and a great gift to give yourself over the holidays.
Yes, it's a great gift for yourself or the witchy person in your life that is connected to this kind of thing. So it's the gift that keeps on giving, because it will put you into alignment with your angels and guides, and then everything else will have a domino effect from there. So really exciting. And I'm just really excited to see you all back in season 2. So happy holidays. Have a beautiful new year, and we will see you on the other side, my loves.
For more information on Taylor and her work, go to angelsandamethyst.com or connect with her on Instagram at angels_and_amethyst. She is the one verified account with this name and will never DM you for a reading. If you have any questions about intuition, spirituality, angels, or anything and everything magical, please email contact@magichourpod.com. We will answer listener questions once a month in our solo episodes. Are you an aligned business owner that would like to advertise to our beautiful hummingbird community? Please email contact@magichourpod.com. Make sure you're subscribing to Magic Hour so you never miss the magic. And don't forget to leave us 5 sparkling star reviews. They help more magical people find the pod. Please screenshot and email your 5-star reviews to contact@magichourpod.com, and we will send you a free downloadable angelic meditation and enter you to win an angel reading with Taylor Page. The next giveaway will happen when we hit 166 5-star reviews.
Thank you for listening to Magic Hour with Taylor Page. Remember, you are magic.